Hi, welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my May wrap up. So as you may know, I decided to have May as a themed month, all about historic fiction. So I managed to be pretty good. I've stuck to my TBR quite a lot, but I did manage to put in a few little extras. So let's just get straight on into what I read in May. First book I technically finished in April, but I'd already filmed my April wrap up, so I couldn't include it, and that is The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. So B.A. Paris is becoming my favourite thriller author. She is so good at doing suspense, and I never ever guess what's coming. Her first book was Behind Closed Doors, which was great. This is her second, and this one features a young woman who's in a couple, and they've moved to the countryside, and it's a very bad night, it's raining, and she decides to take a shortcut through the woods. And when she's there, she finds a car that looks like it's broken down. She stops, but she thinks, I don't want to get out. You hear about people who make people stop and then they murder them or hijack the car. So she decides to go on home. But then it turns out that in this car a woman had been murdered, and this woman is kind of like, if I had stopped, could I have saved her? But would I have been killed if the murderer was still there? It's all very interesting, and some bits are actually quite freaky when she thinks a house has been broken into and stuff like that. Great writing, and I just loved it, and I can't wait to read her next one. Then I read Circe by Madeline Miller. So this is all about the Greek goddess Circe. She's the first ever witch. She is basically exiled to Earth because Zeus and the other Olympians are scared of witchcraft, so she has to go live her life out on this island on Earth. And by there she comes across lots of different Greek heroes, which I never really knew that she was involved. So like you've got the Minotaur, and you've got Odysseus, I think it is. It's all very interesting, but it was a very slow starter. It gets better when she is on Earth and going for all these little adventures and starting witchcraft and having her own like familiar, the tiger, or it might have been a lion, I can't remember. But yeah, I only gave this 3 stars just because it was very, very slow. Then there was one of my most anticipated reads of the year that came out in May. That's Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J Maas. Now lots of people are hating on this book because not much happens in it, but it is only a 200-page novella, and its sole purpose is just to bridge the gap between A Court of Thorns and Roses and this new series that's happening in the same universe. So I don't know why they thought that lots would happen in this book. It's like, it is what it is, and I loved it. It shows lots of people coping with the events of A Court of Wings and Ruin, and then you can also tell it's building up stuff for the next book, which looks like he'll have Cassane as the main and Nesta as the main, which I think will be very, very interesting. I just hope it doesn't go down the whole Fairy and Rhys becoming mates thing, which I think it will, but that's a bit predictable, and it looks like it'll be really good. The Iranian, I can never pronounce that, but the army's kind of becoming a bit untangled. You've got Nesta coping because she's basically moved out. I thought it was very, very nice, a little extra, and it'll be sad when we see these other characters kind of not be the main ones anymore. The first audiobook I finished was The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris, and this was narrated by Richard Armitage. Now I loved this so much. I knew going into it would be emotional, but I did not expect to be trying hard not to cry on the way to work. This is basically the real life story of Olaleh, who was the tattooist of Auschwitz. Basically he was the one who had to write the numbers on everyone's arms, and it's his story about how he survived and the woman he came to marry survived, and it's all very, very harrowing. Lots of stuff happened, and I know we hear about it all the time, but the fact that this is an actual person saying this story makes it 100 times worse. Also, Richard Armitage was so good at narrating, it was great. This is something that will probably stick with me for a while, and it's one of the few books where I actually stuck around to listen to the ending. So you've got like the author's notes, and it's also got like what happened to each of the characters, and some of it is just like, oh my god. But yeah, I love this, and I think if you like your history, you need to read this book or listen to it, because the audiobook was amazing. Then I had a little break and I decided to read Hawkeye vs Deadpool. I saw this in Waterstones and I love Hawkeye, and I thought I'd best give this a read, and I loved it. It's just a little thing, Hawkeye and Deadpool going up against, I think it's Kitty Pryde. It's all very, very nice. I love Deadpool's humour in this, and I love the fact that Hawkeye is deaf. This is one of the things I love about the comics, and I'm really upset that they didn't put it in the films. But yeah, it was great. If you love your comics and if you love Hawkeye and Deadpool, that would be great. Also, this is the first comic I've ever read featuring Deadpool, and I think the way they do it is pretty awesome. I think my voice might be going because my asthma is not too good today, so just bear with me. Then I read the next book in the Plantagenet and Tudor series, The White Princess by Philippa Gregory. So this follows Elizabeth, who is the Yorkist princess, and she has to marry Henry Tudor to create kind of peace, but that obviously doesn't happen. Henry's worried about Elizabeth's brother, Richard. There's rumours that he's coming in to overtake and get his crown back. But then obviously you may know that Elizabeth is the mother of Henry VIII. So now we're going into the Tudor series, and I can't wait. The problem with this one is because a lot of it is Henry trying to work out what's happening with Richard. Elizabeth is just like, I don't know, my mother never told me. So that kind of gets a bit annoying, but it is nice to see that these two people, they didn't love each other, they were rivals. They do kind of fall in love, but Richard's so paranoid it kind of ruins it. But I can't wait to carry on and go into the Tudor side of things. I also managed to get through another audiobook, and that was Mythos by Stephen Fry, and this was narrated by Stephen Fry as well, which is great. If you don't know who Stephen Fry is, he's basically a national treasure. I mostly know him from him presenting QI, which is an amazing show, and he's also like famous for his comedy and stuff like that. He pops up in almost everything, but this was great. This is basically his retelling of the Greek myths, and I loved the audiobook just because you get to see Stephen Fry's humour a bit more. I have a feeling that if I'd read this, I probably would have DNF'd it. Well, I found it hard to tell whether this is fiction or non-fiction because the way it reads mostly like a history book, you know, just going through the whole myth. But then there's bits of storytelling in it where he's like pretending to be all the Greek gods and stuff like that. So I wasn't sure where to put it on my Goodreads list, but I love Stephen Fry's narration. The stories and the humour as well come through so much better in the audiobook. But yeah, if you're really into your Greek myth, I would definitely look at this. Except one thing I was upset about is that it doesn't mention Hercules at all. And he does say in the end, if he was to mention every little thing, this book would be like thousands of pages long. So I understand why he didn't add it, because Hercules is probably one of the most obvious ones, but it would have been nice maybe just to have seen a bit. But it's so great because I didn't realise so much happened, you know, the way they created the spider. There was this spinning contest between, I think it was Athena and a human, but when she lost, she went and hung herself, but then Athena, because I'm pretty sure it was Athena, or it might have been Artemis, was like, I'm going to let you spin your whole life. So she created her into a spider. It's stuff like that I find real interesting, the fact that through these myths they've got like all kinds of creation, and this is Pandora's box on the front as well, which is great to go into. And yeah, I just love being a history geek. I never really learned much about Greek myths, but this was a great beginner's guide to it. And the last book I got through was A Twist in Time by Jill McLewin. So this is becoming my favourite series. I just love it so much. You may have heard me go on about it before, A Murder in Time, but this follows Kenda. I find it so hard to pronounce. I just can't speak today, but she is basically an FBI agent from present time, and she gets sent back in time to the 1800s. This is the second book, and she's still not happy about being in the 1800s, but this one follows where her person who she might be in love with gets accused of murder, and they're trying to figure it out. I did not expect the ending. I loved it. Kenda is becoming one of my favourite female characters. The way she deals with the men in this story, and the women as well, because the women look down on her because she's got short hair, which isn't the style. She doesn't have all the etiquette that a woman would have in the 1800s. She hates the dresses. She doesn't want a man escorting her everywhere. There's a scene where Alec gets into a fight and she's there with her guns, and the men are just staring at her going, okay, because they're threatening to rape her and she's just there going saving Alec. And I just love her. I can't wait for Caught in Time, or it might just be Caught in Time. I've pre-ordered that. That is out in July, and I think I'll be reading that a lot faster because I love this series so much. So that's it for my May wrap up. As you can probably tell from my TBR, there are a few books missing. I am still listening to A Burnable Book. That was one of my historic fiction reads. Hopefully I will finish that today, but you'll see it in my June wrap up. I'm not enjoying it that far. I've also got Law to read and another one to read that I can't remember, but I'll probably try and read those in June. But obviously I will have Legendary coming out on 31st of May, Eve of Man coming out on the 31st of May, and there's a few books in June as well coming out. And then I also want to read my Fairy Loot books. It's going to be a hectic month, and I honestly don't know if I'm going to stick to my TBR. So this wrap up in June will probably be a complete mess, or it might be a very, very good one. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling as this looks like it's going to be quite a long video for me. If you do want to contact me, you've got my social media links below, and I will see you later with a new video. Bye!